I'm going to talk to you a little bit about a new tool that you can use. And whether you make a journey map or not doesn't really matter, but the cool thing about it for the change that you guys are facing right now is that a journey map is an amazing frame to have a conversation. I've spoken with a few of you, and I've heard that some of your show owners and boards of directors are like stick in the muds. They just like won't budge, and you need a tractor, and they still won't budge. A journey map, as you'll find out in our interactive session in a few minutes, is a really clever way to let people start to get their arms around an idea, start to adopt it, start to see that it's even possible, and then figure out how to make it real. So we're going to go over some definitions that you guys can read, blah, 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 blah. Here's a very clever journey map conceptual level from Lego. And you'll notice that they break their customer experience into 3 parts. There's the in-store part, the online part, and the out-of-store part, which can be at the movies, at home, a bunch of different things. So they've got hundreds of people working in marketing, communications, product development, and that's how they kind of see where the lines connect. How do they connect the dots there? But a journey map needs to do 3 things to be successful for you. It needs to show you where your customers are, what they're doing, and how they're feeling. How do you represent feelings on a map? If we go back to the London Tube map, there are no feelings there. The Lego map, there are no feelings there. How do you introduce emotions into a graphic? Any ideas? This is a real question. You would lose at an auction because you would have just bought the painting there. Okay. I'll give you some examples. This is a journey map, and it has one way to show emotions, which is the line that goes through the middle. The top part over here has a description of the activity that's going on, like it could be like attendee enters trade show. This one happens to be for a retail purchase. The little graphics, the pictures, just kind of show the motions of the customer and what's going on. It's just there for visual reference. Everybody learns differently, so it's nice to be able to reach people with text, with some pictures, with some other kinds of information. The curvy thing that looks like a flatlining EKG kind of shows how their emotions are doing. Are they excited, elated? Are they positive, or are they negative? You've all had net promoter scores before. How likely are you to recommend us? This is similar. It lets everybody see what the intent of the experience is. Where are we going to put our eggs? What basket do they go in? Where is it going to be a great part of the experience so everybody can orchestrate and make that part really good? This is another way to do a customer experience design. It's using storyboards. You can see that each group of images is one stage in the experience, and there's not very much different information here than there was in the graphic before. The difference is, however, that the way you relate to pictures and storyboards and people is through emotions and through story. So as we take a look at we'll look at another one in just a second. As you look at those pictures, you'll be able to start to feel what it's like to be the other person. So when you, in your mind, walk through what the experience is like for an attendee, for an exhibitor, etc., you're able to talk about things in a very different way. And again, a journey map is just a frame for a conversation about the future experience that you're going to offer. Journey maps are used in all these different industries with tremendous success. I've used them hundreds of times with clients, and they really are the foundation for breakthrough conversations, great changes in revenue. I'll show you some case studies in a minute. So there are 5 things, and again, you guys can read very well. The journey map is what you use when you're getting ready to differentiate your event. If you're having that tough conversation with one of your show owners or your boards of directors, how are we going to be different? How are we going to be better? Journey map is great for that. If you're looking for ways to engage with your audience more, and pay attention here because this is what I'm going to ask you guys to do in the workshop portion in just a few minutes, how do you create more engagement? A journey map's a great way to do that because it shows where you are, what you're doing, and how you feel. And if you've got a number of heads around the table that are smart about operations and planning and marketing and communications and food and beverage, they can all look at that storyboard and start to see what they need to do so they can create the intended experience rather than just letting the experience happen to the attendees. That's the big difference. When you focus on what your attendees need most, and we heard about that from Brian in our first session, and we heard about that from Tony, they get happier because they like when you give them more of what they want. Design thinking, which is what journey maps are based on, is really cool. And the one really cool thing about it, because it's a problem-solving tool, is that it gives everyone more of what they want. So journey maps are a breakthrough tool because you don't have to like take a little bit from here to get a little bit here. It's not like steal from Peter to pay Paul. Everybody can get more if you just change the design or the frame. So here are a couple of examples for you of where journey maps have had some really big thinking breakthroughs, some economic breakthroughs. None of them have to do with trade show. You guys are going to do that one next. So let's take a look first at restaurants. If it's for me, tell them I'm busy. So in 1999, McDonald's was doing their Restaurant of the Future project, and I was working at IBM as their eVisionary and had a chance to play in this. It was a very, very fun space. So it must have felt like being Tony and getting to design a new show. So here are a couple of women sitting at work, dreaming about lunch, starting to talk about it. They get in the car. One of them asks the other, how do you do this? Notice she's not texting while driving. That's important. Couple of details that we put in the picture here. I'm going to step off the stage here and get into a little detail. If you'll notice, the screen that's in the top left looks exactly like the screen that's on the in the girl's hand. So the receiver of the order has exactly the same screen. And the person at the call center, you can't see the detail, but they're dealing with exactly the same graphics. So if you have special sauce, lettuce, cheese, pickles, onions on a sesame seed bun, you see those ingredients, and so does the customer. So everybody's like on the same page. There's less chance for error. Over here, you're driving over, just like I've got this thing here, your wheels drive over the, hit the curb, and all of a sudden, McDonald's knows that you're on site. Why is that important? Why would they care where you are? Yes, so they can know when to drop the fries and when to bag everything up. And if you had this ability to order in advance, would you want to go into the traditional line and just kind of wait in the drive-thru? Wouldn't you want to be first because you ordered ahead? Well, what they did is they created N number of drive-thrus. So here's one, but next to it is another one, and next to it is another one, and next to it is another one. So basically, they just ping you on your phone, and they say, go to number 4, go to number 6. And the guy walks out, and he brings you your food, and you'll notice that the receipt has exactly the same image on it as your phone order, as the screen that lets you verify. And also, the bag is clear. And the clear bag is so that you don't spend time looking through things and keeping the other people behind you from getting through. Did you hear how much detail there was in that story? You can't get that in a PowerPoint or a conceptual graphic. You get that when you think about the personas that we just heard about from Rich a second ago, and you put those into stories. So that's how journey maps work. And when you do yours, you're going to have a time to talk about, what is the change that we're going to make, where are we going to put it, and what angle are we going to look at it from. But these are one of the advantages. By the way, the McDonald's experiment was so successful that they couldn't deploy it because the estimated rise in sales based on their own econometrics was that they'd have to replace the kitchen in the stores. So much business that they couldn't handle it. But it led to some good learnings from them. This next one is for an employee welcoming experience for a company called iPay Technologies. iPay, way back in the day, 15 years ago, was one of the first to introduce bill pay services to people who had checking accounts. They specialized in community banks and credit unions. So you're imagining this company's growing at 100% a year, doubling sales, doubling profits, doubling number of employees. And the CEO asked me, Mike, how can we continue to grow comfortably and profitably? I've heard a lot of stories about Shepherd and how the leaders of the company take great pains to do the right things at the right time. They don't always go on sales calls. They might spend time training. I just heard that story over here a few minutes ago. They believe the same thing at iPay. They wanted to keep that small company culture as they got really big. So we defined the experience of their employee in the very top right in 4 little blobs. There was pre-hire, first day, first week, and forever. So this is what the first day looks like, and there are 5 key moments in this experience. The first one is showing up. You get your own little parking place. The second one is walking in, getting greeted by the receptionist, you're seated at your desk, and so on. But what's interesting about what we do is we go into a little bit more detail. You'll notice there is Emmett, the little coffee cup-shaped guy. That's what you do when you can't draw. Okay? And there are a bunch of little orange things next to him with numbers on them. These are called clues. Anytime you have an experience, you want the experience to kind of touch people emotionally. Well, the business has to supply clues in order for that to happen. Some of the clues here are these way cool screen signs that are like bright but don't overpower the room. They're great signs. We've got the Pokin devices. We've got all kinds of people in blue shirts offering to be very helpful. Those are clues that connect with you. Here's some of the clues from Emmett's first day of work. Number 24, his business cards are already printed and ready for him. His computer is already up and running and his passwords have been assigned. He has mail waiting for him and his first appointments are on his calendar. I see a couple of you smiling like you've been to places before and not gotten a computer for a few weeks. Okay? So thinking about all these little things that need to happen is where a journey map is so powerful. You have all these ideas, like you will in a couple minutes. You put them on the board on sticky notes. You start to arrange them. You figure out which ones you can and can't do, which ones are stretch, which one do you save for version 2. It's just like building software. And then you put them all in a picture and you launch. And that becomes your experience. But because you have it in a picture, other people can get on board with it. One of the things that happened at iPay was a savings of $20,000 per executive that they brought on board. And they brought about 15 of them on during the course of this project. All we did was we found out why it was that it took people 3 weeks to get a computer on their desk. We asked why. Well, we don't want to pay for these things before somebody arrives. Well, why is that? Because it costs money. Well, it doesn't cost that much. You could just lease it. Well, blah, blah, blah. I get dinged on my annual review if I send computers out ahead of when they're absolutely needed. So one person's puny little issue was stopping executives from being productive for 3 weeks. So all we did was we changed the way the business works. And we let them buy 20 computers at a time, which gave them a cost savings, and they'd warehouse them. They'd get them 90% of the way ready, loading software and stuff like that. When a new employee came in, they made a few little changes. It took them about an hour. Boom, computer's ready. It's on their desk. So we shortened the throughput time, we lowered the cost, and we made the employees more productive. That's design thinking. That's the kind of opportunity that pops out of a journey map. That's what Tony was talking about when we talked about selling less space, but making more money and getting more engagement. It's the same thing. All right, one more. We did a store design for a company called Transitions. Do you guys know Transitions? They make the lenses that change color when it hits UV light. So the same approach, lots of figuring out what's the show floor going to be like, what's the store floor plan going to be like. And here was the idea for the portal. And notice there are some little numbers around it. The little circle on the right-hand side under the word C was a viewport. You've probably been to New York City sometime and you look through the little cutout to look at the construction, same idea, but it would give you the experience of trying on their glasses without having to go in the store and do one. And you'll notice, well, you can't see it here, but the idea was to have a bunch of people standing at the glass going like this, so that behind them, people were looking at the people bent over looking through the glass and going, what are they doing? And then they become the next ones to come up and look through the glass. So when you have conversations about what's the journey like, what's the experience like, those are some of the things that can show up. Is this making sense? Okay. One of the cool things about the last slide, here's the back button. See where it says number 1, the archway, which is kind of suspended. It's a really cool architectural feature. It uses Philips Hue lighting, so it can change color. And the idea is that when something inside the store happens, the color changes. So it can be red or blue or green or anything else. So it's a signal to the employees that something's going on. It's also an attractor for the folks from the outside. All right, the level of detail I'm sharing right now is boring the heck out of some of you. Like, why are you telling me this? The point is that when you use pictures and you put the little notes up there for clues, you can get very deep into the way things will actually work. And that's the conversation that gets people to say yes, or to switch from digging in their heels and being defensive to, let me tell you how I would do that. All of a sudden, the conversation moves in a different direction, and it's all about how to get something to happen. So you take the I am off of impossible, and things can become a little bit more possible.